we'll do a roll call. We'll do attendance. Richard Birch.
Present.
Bob Pease.
Present.
Katie Childs.
Present.
Carl Luck.
Present.
Ken Jones.
Here.
Jack Rabbit is absent, and I'm Todd Dwyer. Any announcements from the commission?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. The Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissioners annual meeting was a little while ago, and Matt and I attended, a little overdue, and given my report to you guys. I'm sure you're waiting for it. But there's one thing I emailed out today, just one of the presentations that I think are particularly relevant that I want to bring to your attention. It's on resiliency and climate change, and what I sent you was that presentation was primarily done by the town of Arlington. And there are a couple things I just wanted to bring your attention to go look in there instead of just the whole thing. They've come up with a new term or concept called Adjacent Upland Resource Area. And again, in trying to really protect and be more resilient, what they've essentially done is they've defined the entire 100-foot buffer area as a resource area. So they're now treating that as a resource area as opposed to a buffer to the resource area, which is pretty fundamentally different. And in the regulation, there's a couple of things that could be interesting to us in our regulation reviews. One is they, identify what can go on in that 100-foot area, and but they also define one of our struggling terms, which is structures. They have a pretty good definition of structures in there because they also require no structures within 50 feet. And they talk a lot about impervious. And there was one other concept I'm losing right now, but just wanted to say enough to maybe get your interest a little bit to go look at that, because in our regulations there may be other things in there that might help us come to closure and get some new thinking. And seems to be the trend out there.
Yeah, actually, the town of Bolton has been using the adjacent upland resource area definition for quite a while. With some success. It's caused some struggles, but they've had some success with it. Our bylaw does treat the buffer zone as a resource area. It's silent on riverfront, but it does have the buffer zone designed as resource area. But the way they define it is why we have the restrictive, the 30 and the 50-foot zones and the ability to move them. So the adjacent upland resource area is a little bit different. So, I mean, Carl's right, there may be plenty of ideas that we might want to look at.
Thanks for adding that.
I know, I agree. I think there's a lot of good ideas in those bylaws that we may want to look at. And there's a lot of other municipal bylaws adopted to stormwater and climate change that are in the folder. What I did was I put together all the MAC the MAC educational materials from the entire conference, put them in a folder in the cloud. In the general files folder, you'll see a thing that says MAC 2019. Every single piece of literature that was given out or used for their presentation is in that folder.
I remember, thanks for buying me time. So I remember the point that I didn't want to miss. Thank you very much, Matt. Was they talk a lot they have a very good write-up about the importance of trees in that whatever that term is, within that area. That says things we kind of know, but again, it's very succinctly put, and it really does a good definition of the importance of the trees and how they deal with it, whether it be 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and whatever. So
Good.
that's it.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay.
Any other announcements from the commission? Any announcements from the public? Hi.
Tom Bertram, 312 Townsend Harbor Road. I don't know if this information is redundant, but the Mass CoLab meeting is April 12th. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but it looks like an interesting agenda. This year it has stormwater, and one other thing on there that I thought was interesting. Managing stormwater for your lake and pond. So
Great,
It's in
thank you.
Westboro. If anyone needs any information, if you don't have it, I can forward it to you.
Please do.
Just for information, I am signed up to go to that, as is Phyllis on the stormwater side. So we bring back whatever we get from that.
All right, if there's no other comments from the public, then we'll open our first appointment. 141 Hemlock, we're gonna review the enforcement.
Oh, hello, everyone. Mike Nault, 141 Hemlock.
If you want to pull that chair forward, you can. You can sit down. Is all the members of the commission familiar with this enforcement?
Yeah.
So we did go out on site to review the area and, on Saturday, and the remaining, stumps that are in the cove that need to be removed are obvious. And Mr. Nault, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you indicated that in the spring, you'll probably, wade out and pull some of these stumps out where you can.
Yes. We've lost our window. I mean, we've tried twice. Twice we've, stopped to double check. Water level's too high. Unless for some reason that the water level goes down, it's spring. I doubt it
Yep.
very much. So our intent is to go in, it's a joint venture between me and the neighbor, go in with waders, hand pull, hand rake, and there will be a piece of equipment there, but it'll be on shore. It's steep terrain, so it's more to be able to take the muck back up. The muck will, the piece of equipment will be nowhere near the water. So that's our
Great.
intent. Most of it, I have a picture here, but most of it, as you can see, is like logs that have already been cut and debris that's just been thrown in there. We've got a collection of tires and such that we've been pulling out, so.
Any comments from the commissioners?
Just, it's a question on the photo, Mike. Do you remember roughly how far down the lake was when that was taken? Or is that, it's not now, is it?
It's probably close to right now.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
the picture was taken roughly about a month ago, but that's,
While we were there, I believe we should lift the enforcement order. I don't think, I think we need to have a dialogue with Hickory Hills Lake about what is not permissible. I think Hickory Hills is great stewards, and they try to do the right thing, and I just think we need some clarification going forward, and I'm disappointed our agent isn't here for this discussion.
I agree with you, Bob. I think the policy on muck removal is a little ambiguous at best. So I think clarification for muck removal for not just Hickory Hills, but also Lake Shirley would be beneficial. So people know what we'll accept and we can avoid, future enforcement orders and, I mean, people trying to do the right thing.
Good.
That's my view on this one as well.
I believe that muck removal is an important tool to prevent lake eutrophication. I mean, nature tries, the minute you make a lake, which Hickory Hills Lake was made in like 1930-something or other, I'm not sure when, nature tries to fill it in. If you let nature take its course, pretty soon you have no more lake, you have a swamp around the edge. And to me, muck removal and biomass removal is an important tool to prevent lake eutrophication, and we should keep it in our arsenal.
With that, I'll accept the motion to dismiss the enforcement order at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? because we have a member participating remotely, all our votes tonight will be by roll call. Richard Birch?
Aye.
Bob Pease?
Aye.
Ken Jones? Aye. Carl Luck?
Aye.
Katie Childs?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, all.
Apologies, I just had to make sure all the handicap accesses were open because the cleaning crew was downstairs earlier.
Next hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing for a notice of intent, for a request for determination by John Harrison for placement of a 16 by 4 rolling dock at 205 Sunset Lane within the buffer zone of Lake Shirley. Thank you.
Do I get up for John Harrison?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I hate doing these things. Okay, but he couldn't make it because he had to work, so I'm gonna wing it. It's pretty
Yep.
easy.
Name and address.
Oh, Tina Harrison, 186 Albee Street, Fitchburg. Okay, so he wants to put steps in to go to the lake. 2 of them, 2 by 12. He'll nail the steps in. This is
Yeah,
chicken scratch.
in speaking to him on this, because he amended his RDA, it's a seasonal placement in the ground, not in the ground, but on the ground, and then
Okay.
you just basically pull
Does
it
he
out.
stake them in place so
Yeah,
they're
just stay
secure?
in place so it's secure, and then you just move them out after the season's over. They would have to be.
Why would they be moved out when the season's over?
Because he doesn't want to leave them there permanently because he's afraid of winter damage.
Oh, okay,
Because he's just placing them on the ground, so, you know.
okay.
Comments from the commission?
I spoke to him at length about this. He,
Is there an updated drawing, or is it the original one?
there, it is on the engineered plan too.
The original plan?
Yep. And the updated.
Yeah.
There's an updated plan in there that shows the, there we go.
I look at it
An
on
updated plan that
Saturday.
shows the house
Yep.
location. Excuse me. Carl, do you have this one too?
I can't see it.
Showing the house location?
That's the one I just did.
The house location?
Yeah, you have that one.
Oh, okay. What house?
Oh, this.
The house that he had built, you asked to have that put on the plan to help
Oh.
you orient where it was.
Down here, got it.
So Rosemary put it on the plan in that manner.
So we're still looking for stairs and the dock, right? Or, I only heard the stairs mentioned. Is it dock too?
Yeah, he wants a dock too.
Yeah, the original determination was for the dock. He amended it to include the steps just placed on the ground. Because he knows that, you know, permanent structures like that are frowned on. So he just placed it on the ground, nail it in place. When the season's over, when he pulls the dock out, he pulls the stairs out.
I agree, Bob, that's a lot of work to pull those stairs out, but that's the way it's, that's fine. My concern there is, and I guess you guys went and saw this, this is a very narrow strip of land that's extremely steep, going from the road down to the lake. And
Which is why he needs the stairs.
which is why you need the stairs. My concern is what happens along the shore. Because if you look at the adjacent, there are two similar things like this, little pieces that people just use to get access to the lake. And very quickly, you know, the use expands, and all along the shore, you have a campfire, you have paths, you have disturbance, and you have, all the brush disappears, and just very concerned. So I guess my question is, how are we going to be assured that it just goes from the stairs onto the dock and that there isn't a lot of disturbance of the land, because it's extremely steep, and any removal of shrubbery is going to, you know, increase the runoff. And as I say, if you look at the two places next to it that are like the models of this, you can see that they are way from natural. Matter of fact, there's little walls and there's little things keep creeping up.
Well, if you tell us, we won't do that. We'll just do the stairs and do our little thing.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was the stairs, you know, if the stairs I have no problem with, gaining access there. It's just that from the stairs to the dock should be the access. It's not, it can't become a beach or, because there's really no good way to get out of the
Yeah, well,
water
I mean,
there.
in looking at the area where the stairs is supposed to go, you're gonna have to cut some little on the ground herbaceous layers down. You don't have to uproot everything to pull them out,
And
So,
I'm not, where the stairs are, the stairs are. I'm talking about beside the stairs. And then you see in this drawing, the stairs stop pretty short of the dock. And there's quite a bit of shore that I'm sure now is going to tend to be used. And it's
Well,
going
it's only
to,
about 8 feet or so.
yeah, it was only about 20 feet in the whole strip.
It's a 4 by 12 dock, so you have, maybe 8 feet between the bottom of the stairs and
Maybe 6.
maybe 6.
Yeah, it's not that little strip that I'm concerned about. It's what I'm concerned about is the spread to each side. But next thing you know,
So
the
you're
whole-
concerned about things that they're not applying for? They're not
Yeah,
applying to
I'm
do anything
I'm
except for
concerned.
the
This is
stairs
given,
and the dock.
this is given access to an area that's very sensitive and very critical.
So,
may I make a suggestion?
hold on
I'm
one-
sorry, Tom.
1 second. I guess I like this solution better, Carl, because my fear is if they didn't have a dock, then they create a walking footpath just doubling back on itself all the way down to the dock to get there.
Yeah, well, I would, personally, I would feel more comfortable that we won't expand laterally along the shore.
Right.
If the stairs actually went to the dock, and that was it, and there was no expansion, beyond that, so you use the stairs to get to the dock, to get to the boat, to get to the whatever.
So you like the stairs to connect,
I'd
right?
almost like the stairs to go to the dock
So you step off
with
the
rails,
stair.
so you're not even
Yeah.
disturbing the,
I'm
Yeah.
sure he can do that. I don't think he'd have a problem doing that.
I don't have an issue with that.
Well,
I think the more robust we make the stairs, though, the more likely it's gonna become a permanent structure.
yeah, I don't see it. I mean, the permanent,
this
not
is-
permanent is, because they're only going to be there during the growing season.
I mean,
So-
this is one of those things where I'd actually consider a variance to prevent disturbance for the rest of the slope.
Yeah.
Is the bottom flat, like that area between where the dock and the stairs is? No.
Just, it's the same thing through that whole strip. It goes mild, but I mean, it's walkable. The other suggestion I would make on the determination is that we put in a condition that makes it clear that there would be no removal of the loom layer and no stripping of vegetation.
well, I don't know, I mean, if this is Mr. Luck's concern, we should just take and put on a thing that they're supposed to stay, in the area between the stairs and the dock.
Yeah.
But they could step outside of the area if they wanted to fish or something, right?
Yeah,
So, you can't say that they can't not go.
that's a
in
good
that.
point.
Yeah,
Good
it's not-
point.
I would be in favor of approving it as the plans show.
So would I.
Rich, you still there? Rich? Is he on the
Yep,
screen?
still
Oh,
here.
there he is.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I've been listening.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure you were still there, that's all.
Any thoughts
No,
on this
I had
one,
nothing
Rich?
to add at this point.
Okay, Katie?
So I guess what, if that's the way it's going, I guess a minimum, I'd like to make sure that there's good documentation, maybe some photographs, once the snow is gone, which it almost is, of that area, so we have good documentation of what's there now, so that if it looks different, we can tell and there's no questions.
Why don't you make it a motion and include it within the motion?
I was gonna say, I'll take the pictures myself, because I know exactly what you guys
Yeah.
want in the file, so I'll take them myself.
Great.
Okay. Great. So I'll accept a motion for a -3 determination.
Actually, Todd, before you did that, do we have any dates on when the temporary stairs are gonna be removed and replaced each year?
No. I'll ask my husband.
Where it's filed,
Well, I would say
temporary stairs.
the day they close the dam down, or the day they start doing their drawdown, which is what, October?
October
We-
15th?
We don't specify dates on when people have to remove their docks by, though, right? Do we?
We don't,
No, I didn't mean the docks, Ken, I meant the stairs.
Yeah,
How about
what I'm
October?
saying is we don't say when people have to remove their docks, so why would we say when they have to remove their stairs?
Oh, I was asking if they had dates for when they were gonna be putting them in and out.
We don't have dates at this time.
Do you have a
I
suggestion,
would
Richard?
recommend it. I like Matt's suggestion, putting them in after the lake has reached full level and taking them out prior to the dam being, open.
When does it go to full level?
Like right now.
April 1st.
Oh, okay.
Has to be.
So it's April through October. I mean, that's the usual season, everybody does that stuff.
All right, perfect.
I make a motion for a negative determination with the stipulation that the stairs go in after April 1st and come out October 15th.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second?
Motion second. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, Richard Bursch,
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Aye.
Ken Jones.
Aye.
Carl Luck.
Aye.
Katie Childs. And I vote aye as well.
So it's good?
All set.
Yep, all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws. K&E Realty Trust has filed a notice of intent for construction of an addition to commercial building, Asian Imperial, within the buffer zone at 5 Electric Avenue.
Hi,
Good evening.
good evening. I think you have a plan right there. too?
Yes.
So, all right.
And this looks
Yeah,
like it's the
just got
amended
the
plan.
Yes, this is a plan that what we have so far. So as you can see, our addition,
Excuse me, if you're looking for, if you guys are looking for it on the cloud, I don't have it, I just got it this evening.
okay.
Like just before the meeting, so.
okay, so just want to clarify, whatever we add to the building right now, it's on existing pavement. So the engineer already put all the pavement on there, this parking spaces, the existing concrete pad, pavement, so it's on there. So we're not adding, we're not grabbing any extra space in the back whatsoever. We're just gonna use what we have right now.
And it looks like
This is
you've pulled
concrete
the
pad,
dumpsters
yes.
around to be...
Yes, right behind the building,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
Yep. And we also cut the building back 2 feet. So the building
Okay.
is actually smaller right now. Everything else stays the same, but
It also looks like they have the restoration area outlined. on it.
yes.
Yes.
And then Matt will be working with Mark Bursch on that. Yep.
Any comments from the commissioners? It looks like, in my view, they addressed our concerns.
I'm good with it. I mean, I looked at the plans before the meeting started, I'm good with it.
As long as it's out of the blacktop, I have no issues.
Yep.
Okay. All right, then I will accept a motion for a standard order of conditions for construction of the addition at 5 Electric Avenue.
The only question I have is the remediation was supposed to take place before anything happened, or do we?
That's a good point.
We can just add a condition in your motion that the remediation needs to take place prior to construction of any other
I think it's Mark told me that he's gonna give you a plan for that.
Actually, he's waiting to see if this is approved this evening. I spoke to
Okay.
him today.
Today, okay.
And if this is approved this evening,
Yep.
him and I are gonna meet on site to go over a
Over it.
planting plan.
Yes, yes.
And I'll put the planting plan in the file.
Yes.
But to execute the planting plan, we're talking about doing that before you do anything else.
Okay, that's right.
So to clarify, they're gonna execute the planting plan, and then they'll come in and establish their erosion protection and all that, and we'll be able to start construction.
That is
in
correct.
earnest. All right.
And I can, if you guys put that in the form of a motion, excuse me, Rich, don't mean to reach in front of you. If you guys want to put that in the motion, I'll make sure that that's put that way on the order. I mean, if you guys approve it tonight, I'm going to contact Mark anyway and set up a time for next week to go out with him and look at the area.
So you're saying the motion would stipulate that they have to come back in?
No, the motion would stipulate that the restoration area has to be completed and planted in before the commencement of any other construction on the property.
Yeah, I don't think they have to come back, as long as they age.
It's a small area, it's very easily dug out, graded.
Yeah, I think there's still some snow in the back, that's the main concern.
Yeah,
I think
but
here it's
it'll-
way, okay, we'll be fine.
It's gonna melt fine, rapidly, that site is.
Because we tried to do this ASAP. We have Pelletier Brothers already lined up. They have us scheduled, so I like to
They're
get
gonna
this done.
have to adjust
Yeah.
the schedule according
Yes.
to the restoration.
That's
so.
fine, yeah, we'll restore that first, and then we'll get that after.
Hey, Matt, I'm assuming that the restoration area is determined on the plan already?
Yes, it is. Yep, they put it in according to what, the old.
Richard, do you
plan
wanna
was
see
and
a
what we
plan?
required.
Can he see, like,
As long as it's on the plan for us to approve, that's fine. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that the
Yeah.
area itself for restoration is documented.
Yeah.
As far as how it's restorated,
so he can see it?
I have full confidence in the administrator.
It's right here.
Okay?
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
There's no further discussion. We'll take a roll call vote. Richard Birsch.
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Ken Jones.
Aye.
Carl Luck.
Aye.
Katie Childs. I vote aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's the, yeah, 81.
Open our next hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws. Public hearing for a notice of intent by Steve Violet for repairs of a roadway and reconstruction of a bridge deck at 181 Kilburn Street.
Good evening, gentlemen. Tom Christopher, representing the trust. We've been in front of the board before on this project, originally with restoring the road for the Beaver Dam, and at the time, the commission asked us to come back and talk about how we would replace the bridge, the failing bridge that is crossing the stream. We did present a plan, and Vice Chair Dwyer had some concerns, primarily because the cement that we had suggested that we would use, Vice Chairman Dwyer thought that perhaps that would put too much pressure on the wall, and suggested that we either do some excavation to check that out. But we've actually, I think, taken it a step further, and we've redesigned the entire bridge. We've made the bridge smaller, and we've I shouldn't say we made the bridge smaller, we made it larger. And we set the distance back away from the
Longer.
edge of the stream.
So your new footings are now supporting the bridge that don't, it's the old look.
Highly new footings, and
Great.
they're quite substantial.
Katie, we can share this.
We can share this one. Yeah. Yeah, so it went way back.
So we're actually setting back the concrete supports 10 feet away from the edge.
Yep.
We've redesigned the bridge so that we're not using the number of steel spans that were in the original design. We've cut it down to just 3 steel spans, and we've beefed up the size of the gauge of the steel girders. It's now a WD-50 by 12. So that pretty much is what we've done to alleviate your concerns.
What's a WD?
That is the type of steel that they use.
I just didn't know what it was.
There are different types of steel. Originally, I think we were doing a W8 by 13. This is now a W12 50. It's 30 feet long. It's a pretty substantial bridge.
I'm good with it. He's an engineer, I'm not.
We can appreciate that.
Well, and it looks like you didn't push the limits at all. You have it well away, so the new footings aren't going to influence the existing bridge at all.
So essentially, what we're doing is we're building a bridge over the bridge. We're going to raise that up 6 or 8 inches. We're going to keep it as low as we can. I guess I have a question for the commission as well. In our original plan, we had talked about demolishing the old bridge and then placing concrete in there. I'm not seeing a need to do that unless the commission has a concern.
I don't think you need to either. I think if you can leave it in place, the less disturbance, the better.
That's fine. That's what I was thinking. So if you have any other questions relative to this?
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I seem to recall at the last time we had a hearing on this, that this was the only question.
Yeah.
And so I'm prepared to vote.
All right. I'll accept the motion for notice of intent, or for a standard order of conditions for this project.
So move.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Richard Birch.
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Aye.
Ken Jones.
Aye.
Carl Luck. Aye. Katie Childs.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
Thank you very
All set.
much.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. Appreciate
As
it.
a point of information to the commission, some of you may have noticed a large excavator on the Lancaster Ave property, just above the area where we installed that large drainage basin. Mr. Violet is going to be constructing a very large barn that is going to be quite a distance away from the detention basin and is also outside of the buffer zone. The purpose of the barn is for food safety. In recent months, the Department of Food and Agriculture has put an emphasis on food safety. In the past, they have allowed washing of food products in the field. They're still allowing that, but now they're doing inspections. So rather than get into some difficulty in the future, Mr. Violet is trying to be proactive, so he is going to be bringing this operation inside the building where it'll be a little more secure and certainly I hope would be more sanitary. We are aware of the commission's concern, and once the building is staked, I will inspect it, and if I find that we need some hay bales or straw wattles, we'll certainly put those in place.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening.
Take care.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, we'll open our next hearing. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing for a notice of intent by Borrego Solar Systems for construction of a 2.26 megawatt facility at 190 Electric Avenue within the buffer zone.
Good evening.
Do we need name?
Yep, Brandon Smith. Here with me is Josh Farks, also with Borrego Solar. So just a quick recap on where the project stands. Last week, I attended the meeting. We had received comments from the DEP a few hours prior, so we went through those. Since then, we responded, made some changes to the plans, and resubmitted, hopefully with enough time for the board to review. I think we submitted last Wednesday. So at this point, I'd like to just hear, any comments or concerns that the commission still has, and
Go ahead, man.
and be happy to answer.
I discussed it with you previously about having an on-site inspector, which would be Tom Christopher, because Tom is starting on our setless solar, which is going to be starting pretty soon. These guys aren't expecting to start for, what, another year?
Right.
Once all your approvals are secured?
Correct.
So, I mean, it's plenty of time, so we're not cramping Tom's style.
Yeah.
They've agreed to that.
Yep.
The other thing is the wildlife mix, the cover.
The clover, we have the
when we
hummingbird mix.
You're gonna use a New England wet mix, you know, with the seed compound not having anything that would go over 30 inches.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're gonna write that into your order.
That-
There's one thing you can work with myself and Tom on is reviewing the mix upon construction, because I'm gonna want Tom to take a look at what you're using for a mix and then go from there.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, we'd be happy to do that.
And those are my two initial comments.
And you'll be writing those into the order?
Yes.
Conservation or wildlife mix is the exact seed mix.
Yep. It's a New England Conservation Wildlife mix, but you can exclude any of the seeds that go over 30 inches in height, that way you don't have to worry about shading.
Yep.
The New England wetland plants can compound that for you, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really, we are completely open as long as it's really that 30-inch maximum that affects us, so. we'd
I've
be
personally
happy to-
done custom compounded mixes with them. They're really good at it, plus they don't, they're not overpriced with it. It's pretty much the same price as their regular compounds, so.
Perfect. Works for us.
Any other comments from the commissioners? In my view, that addresses all the comments we had on the project. With those two stipulations from Matt, I'll accept a motion that includes an environmental representative on site during construction. Is that on a part-time basis, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we work out a schedule based on their construction schedule. Right, Tom, while you're here, we're gonna work out a construction schedule, an inspection schedule based on their construction schedule, right?
That'd be fine.
That's how we normally do it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And then also the inclusion of the conservation wildlife mix.
Yep.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. Roll call vote. Richard Bursch.
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Yes.
Carl Luck.
Aye.
Ken Jones. Katie Childs.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Open our next hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the town of Lunenburg. Wetlands Protection Act, municipal bylaws, call it hearing for realty or notice of intent for construction of a single-family home at 150 Cross Road.
Yes, application for the
Beautiful, thank you.
Good evening.
If you need there's a tripod over there if you want to.
Whatever works best. for-
That's up to you.
Is this okay?
Leave that up to you guys if you wanted to bring it up. So is there any abutters here for 150? I don't see any abutters here. No. All right, it's up to you guys.
Good evening. For the record, Jim Basile, Hennigan Engineering. On behalf of the applicant, RCL Realty Trust 2, Hennigan Engineering has prepared a notice of intent application package for review by this commission for the construction of a single-family home at 150 Cross Road. The proposed project lot is located on the west side of Cross Road and along the southerly side of Pine Grove Road. Currently, the site has no existing structures on it, and it primarily consists of wooded and brush areas. Pine Grove Road and Cross Road both exist at a higher elevation than the majority of the site, and the existing grading is sloping down towards the middle of the site, creating a valley, if you will, and a low point. Within this low point area exist bordering vegetated wetlands, which extend from the southerly property line up to the northern portion of the lot. These bordering vegetated wetlands are subject to protection under the Wetland Protection Act and have been reviewed and delineated by Karen Environmental Services in November of 2018. The intent of the applicant is to construct a single-family home in the northwestern portion of the lot with an associated driveway and applicable utility services. The proposed driveway will connect to the southerly side of Pine Grove Road and will be the single point of entry to the site. Domestic water will be provided via connection to a proposed well, which will be installed in the south of the proposed house. Domestic sewage will be made via a connection to a proposed E1 system, which will then connect to an existing force main stub that is located on the southerly side of Pine Grove Road. Siltation and sedimentation will be mitigated by utilizing straw wattles and silt fence barriers, which will exist along the limit of clearing on this side to protect the wetland areas. These temporary mitigation measures will remain in place until the disturbed areas have been stabilized. And in conclusion, there will be no direct alteration to the bordering vegetated wetlands. If there's any questions that I can address.
Well, we did a site visit there on Saturday, and Todd, myself, and Matt, and our only comment at the time was we wanted to protect that slope. The slope is pretty steep there. And we talked about, limiting foot traffic and cutting, and I forget what else we said, but that was our only remarks when we went there and looked at the site, because that's really the only place that it has the potential even to affect the wetlands, so.
This area over here?
Along that entire.
Would it help if we used jute matting in that area to help with stabilization?
I'd like to see that. Because that is a steeply sloping area, and I guess one of the concerns we have is it looks like you're doing some grading within the, between the 30 and the 50-foot buffer. And it looks like there's going to be potentially, just based on the light shading that you have there, manicured lawn within the 50. And in this site, because it really is adjacent and uphill from an existing wetland, I'd like to, personally like to keep all the manicured landscaped areas out of the 50. Leave it kind of more of a natural brush or something like that, and whatever potential trees there are. I don't know. That's my opinion. I'm not sure how the other commissioners feel.
I agree with Todd.
The other thing I see, or just a question for you, it looks, you had indicated that your E1 line, E1's is that a brand name of whatever system for your sewer piping and a vent, it looks like?
Yeah, for the record, Chris Harris with Hannigan. An E1 system is just it is a brand name. It's a low pressure sewer system.
Yep.
All watertight. It's just a different way to get sewage from point A to point B. It's no different than your normal septic system pressure system.
Yep.
It's a self-contained unit. It's within a glorified 38-inch pipe. It's watertight and sealed. Has a low pressure head motor in it. So it's ideal for smaller sites where the delta in the elevation isn't significant.
So, it's a gravity system?
No, it's a sewer system.
It's a pressure system?
Yes.
The whole system in that area was put in pressure.
Okay, so if it's a pressure system, one of the things I'd like to see, just to avoid any, or reduce the potential for any harm to the wetland, if that line broke or something like that, in the future would be can you move it to the west side of the house? As opposed to the east side where you have that steep slope and whatnot.
These systems are pretty reliable. We installed them on a lot of our larger subdivision projects. So the likelihood of it breaking is really low. But the issue with bringing it on the west side of the property is that there's so much there, so we can't really get the routing through the garage itself.
What about going right through the front of the yard? I mean, just where the walkway is, you know, just as far away from that slope as possible.
If in the future it does break.
Yeah.
If it does break in the future, we have to come back for the commission anyway, because that's what we have to so. I think if it breaks, we'll come to that issue, we approach it, I guess, but I don't foresee that happening anytime soon.
What's the cover gonna be on the pipe? Are you below
Usually
frost?
About 4 feet.
Yeah.
If it's any higher, usually they'll insulate it. It usually suffices.
Are you happy, Todd?
I mean, it's low risk, but again, this is kind of a sensitive area, so just my opinion, I'd move it away from that side of that.
I do have a letter from an abutter that came in because the abutter couldn't be here tonight.
Yep. You want to read? It's a pretty long letter.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you the highlight portions that are applicable here. It's from a Mr. Michael Revard at 31 Pine Grove Road. Essentially, his major concerns, well, he said the property failed specific septic system perk test 3 times, hence probably the reason for the sewer. He's claiming the area contains vernal pools along the hillside due to the spring runoff and the clay soil. I don't see anything on DEP's websites about it. When I inspected the delineation of the property, I didn't see anything that would jump out as a vernal pool, but even still, bringing the 50-foot zone as a no-touch zone, I think will address that concern. He's talking about nesting in the trees for owls and pileated woodpeckers. He goes into some detail about, you know, wildlife he's seen on the property, and he's worried about runoff on the hillside on the east side of Cross Road and from the high point of Cross Road. As the south gathers in a catch basin north of the high point of Cross Road and is funneled through a culvert onto the property. This occurs throughout the year. He's correct. I mean, there is a lot of drainage that goes down to one area. There's a perennial stream way downstream. They're not in the riverfront, so they're not even close to the riverfront. But property to a northbound covered across Pine Grove Road, eventually crossing a crossroad. He's basically tracing the drainage going all the way down to Massacog Pond eventually. So he's obviously concerned about that. But again, I think increasing the vegetative zone and getting away from the manicured lawn on that 50-foot zone addresses the majority of those concerns. Actually, all of them.
I read the letter in its entirety, and I think that if we do the 50-foot no-touch and talk about the vegetated part that Todd was advocating, that will address everything.
Hey, Todd, just a quick question on your recommendation of the 50-foot no-touch zone. Are you recommending that they are allowed to clear the area they've cleared and go through and grade it as they've submitted and then replant up back to the 50-foot boundary?
Yeah.
I'm looking at this and I don't know how they're gonna stay out of the 50-foot without grading it.
I'd be open to that.
And looking at it, I mean, in where the existing 98 elevation is now, they have proposed 102. And I don't know how they're gonna be able to just cut it at the 50-foot. So we just wanna make sure we have language into what we want it revegetated as.
I agree. I mean, I think I'd like to see it revegetated as upland forest.
Okay. So put back in the same conditions or the same plant counts that were there prior to disturbance.
You see what he's talking about, Chris?
I see.
So essentially, you'd be allowed to go in there.
Yeah, get the, I would have to insist on at least getting in there and grading, because.
Well, that's what we're saying. You go in, you do your grading, and then just replant the forest back.
You'd be open to letting it go wild and putting in a wild seed mix similar to what you proposed in the previous project? At least along that portion of the slope, within, say, 10 feet of the erosion control line, and let that just go back to its natural state. Planting excessive trees in an area, especially that close to a house and a sewer main, might not be the greatest idea in the world. But at least that way, you get nature a chance to recoup itself.
But we'd have to have some sort of demarcation then at the 50-foot, so that we don't get intrusion over time.
Well, we're proposing a line of...
Would be my suggestion.
Yeah. We're currently proposing a line of boulders at the 30-foot no touch. Kick that up.
We move that back to the 50?
Yeah. At least far up as we can. Like I said before, if we do the 10-foot vegetation, we hover around the 35 to 40-foot mark in most areas. So if we give from the erosion control line 10 feet upland, you hit about the 50-foot in some areas. It's a nice straight line. And we just put the boulder line there and just let that area go back to nature.
What is the current condition? Is it brush or is it trees?
It's forest.
Yeah, it's
forest. It's basically thinly wooded.
Yeah.
So I would think we should bring it back to where it was in that 50-foot area.
I have no trouble with them bringing it back with, you know, a natural herbaceous layer. It's kind of close to the house to be insistent on trees, I think.
How close to the house is the 50-foot?
We're looking at probably 70
20
feet. Yeah. We're looking at probably 7 feet outside the buffer, or the wetland, sorry.
Not 20 feet.
50, that's 100, yeah. But we're saying in the, inside the 50, not outside.
Yeah.
Right.
So essentially, the boulder line that we're showing on the 30-foot, or essentially the erosion control line, kick that up 10 feet upland, and in that 10-foot strip between the erosion control line and that boulder line, plant a herbaceous seed mix, and let nature take its course.
So would I.
Chris would be okay with
I'm fine with that as well. As long as it's not gonna be manicured lawn, I'm fine with that. Yep.
Yeah, again, I share that concern. So as long as it's gonna go back to a wild mix, it should be fine.
And we'll revise our plan prior to construction, provide it to the commission, whole 9 yards, and go from there.
All right, yeah, that's a good place for that conservation wildlife mix as well.
I believe so too.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent thought.
Only because I've done a lot of work on some other more sensitive areas than this, and my go-to is just, let's don't try to overplant back to what it's there now, because you're never going to make it work. Just give nature a chance to regrow, because it's going to do it anyway. And that area is also pretty steep, so nobody's going to mow that well anyway, so it's going to go to nature anyway.
Don't be surprised. Hey, the second question I did have on the plan is to the left side of the garage, you have 109 by 3 grade to drain.
Yeah, just to direct the stormwater off to the sides, so it's not hitting the house directly. Just the general, that's easily done with the backhoe when they're doing the grading around the house. Just intent to direct it away, because we're also getting the runoff from the abutting property at 31 Pine Grove. So just to help save the house from unnecessary drainage runoff.
Okay, and are you gonna try to use that flattened off area for some infiltration prior to it running past the house and down the steep slopes?
We could, it's relatively shallow anyway, so it's gonna do it by itself.
Any help we can give it, like, maybe take the driveway and just pitch it a hair to slow the water down so it doesn't just run over the driveway and down, things like that.
Sure.
Because you have all of the upland sheet flow that's going right through there, so anything we can do to help slow it down to get it to, infiltrate would be helpful.
Yep.
Before we hit the steep slopes again. Because you've got a pretty steep slope there just to the, I guess that would be the west side of the house and the garage.
Yes.
Where you're cutting into the banking.
Yep.
So anything we can do to slow the water down when it hits that 109 grade, and if we get any sedimentation, try to slow that down as well.
Absolutely.
So looking at the grades, is that going to be a walkout out of the back?
Yeah, there'd be a slight walkout on the back portion here. There'd be a deck. I think their intent is to kind of go both directions with access. So it'd be pretty much at grade up here. They're just going to have a walkout down there too.
So what are you doing at 109 grade? I'm trying to get the notes straight.
We'll try to make it a little bit flatter as possible, just to help reduce that velocity.
109 grade to drain. That's all they're trying to do is just
Try to give it a fighting chance to slow it down a bit more.
Any other questions from the commission? Any comments from the public? Then
The only other thing I would add, Todd, would be to survey locate the erosion protection prior to the trees being removed.
Absolutely. Thought that was part of the standard order conditions, Rich.
I just want to make sure everybody heard me.
Yep.
And I don't know if survey locate is part of the standard condition, just having it in place. But where you're running right up against the 30 foot, we definitely would like to have it survey located.
Okay. No problem.
And based on the plan here,
Not that the tree clearers aren't really intelligent people, but sometimes engineers may put the stakes in the right spots where the tree guys might just say, oh, look, there's a tree I want.
and it looks like your
About that.
your erosion control mirrors the limit of clearing on the south and
Yeah.
the east side, and it looks like it just touches the 30 foot in two locations, but for the most part, it's 5 or 10 feet off.
Yeah, usually it's about a few feet off the 30-foot touch. You'll stake the erosion control, and then it's usually the tree clearing lines right on top of that.
Yep.
No need to go much more further than that.
Okay. I will accept a motion for a standard order of conditions with the caveat that, one, grading is okay within the, between the 30 and the 50-foot zone. However, after the site grading has been completed, the 50-foot zone will be allowed to go back to wild, and they'll introduce a conservation wildlife mix for replanting along that zone, and the boulders will be placed along the 50-foot boundary to demarcate the no disturb zone. In addition, the erosion control will be staked at the limit of clearing for the lot. Surveys located and staked at the limit of clearing for the lot.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, second, roll call vote. Richard Birch.
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Aye.
Ken Jones.
Aye.
Carl Luck.
Aye.
Katie Jones, aye. And I vote aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended in the Town of Lunenburg Wetlands Protection and Municipal Bylaws, a public hearing on a continued notice of intent by Nancy Bell for replacement of an existing retaining wall at 51 Fire Road 19.
At the applicant's request, continue to the next meeting.
Just a question, we were waiting
Sure.
for some new drawings, do we have those yet?
No,
No.
that's the need, hence the need to continue.
All right, so I'll accept the motion to continue until the next meeting, which is dated April,
Third.
I believe it, yeah, I was gonna say, I
April
believe it's the 3rd.
So moved.
motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, roll call vote. Richard Bursch.
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Aye?
Ken Jones.
Aye.
Carl Luck.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Meeting's continued till April 3rd. Move on to enforcement. Let's see. Matt, do you have
63 Prospect
63
Street?
Prospect Street? Why don't you bring us
Nick?
up to speed on that?
I believe I sent you guys the enforcement ticket. It's enforcement case number 2019-10. This is the house that was built by Ken Mattson over on 63 Prospect. Like we did for 150 Cross, we had established a 50-foot no-touch zone without doing any removals. And last week, there were trees being removed in that 50-foot zone. So Nick is here to talk to the commission about that.
Yes, we had a storm about a month ago. We had about 15, 20-foot branch fall down in the front of the house, and I had a branch fall down on the roof of the house. And those trees, they're sick and dying. So I had him, I called up Affordable Tree Service, and he came down, and I told him to remove all the trees that are a danger to the house.
Yep.
And I still have some more trees that are standing over there. They're dead. Some are dead. And I would like them out. And by the summer, I think, you ain't even gonna be able to tell that anything happened there, with the sun hitting it. And I got pictures here. I don't know if you want to see the pictures.
Yeah, if you have pictures of the damage, that'd be great.
I'll just give you the phone and you can pass it around. And
Why don't you just hold it up and we can...
that one's still, this is after he cut the trees.
Yep. So the branches that fell and hit the house, did it cause a claim, or?
No, it bounced off the roof of the house. But you can see, trying to get to a decent picture here. This is where he cleared. It was all like dead limbs. But if you could look in the woods, you can see a lot of dead limbs. So he removed all the dead limbs, branches for safety, he said. So, and he grinded them up. But I still have trees that shouldn't even been there. I said that to the builder, and he said that's up to the homeowner, that the town won't let him do anything, so.
Yeah, so, in fact, it was, one of the conditions for building on the lot was that we were gonna leave the trees in place, which is why you're here tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, upon investigation, I did speak to Mr. Mattson, who submitted a statement to the record, that he had indeed informed the homeowner that no work could be done behind the silt fence, which was the limit of work for the 50-foot zone.
Yeah.
So that was done. And my suggestion at this point, maybe we should add it to our site inspection schedule and take a look at it. We can see which trees are not healthy, see if we can come up with some type of a planting plan. And looking at the terrain around there, this actually might be a good case for reestablishing that 50-foot zone and using part of it for a rain garden. Where he would plant certain species that would attenuate, runoff coming off of his yard.
So do you have,
I have trees going in. Well, my landscaping, I don't know if you saw it, but it's not good. I got like 20 trees and other plants going in. I just can't we couldn't do it when we moved into the house, because,
Yeah, well, I mean, we could talk about that on site. If he wants to put trees in, he's welcome to put trees in too.
I think we still have a few weeks before you plant anyway. So-
yes.
If we
Yeah,
could,
it's gonna be a little
if we
muddy
could
out.
schedule a site walk before our next meeting, which is April 3rd, so the site walk would be probably the 31st.
March 30th.
March 30th.
That's the day of the next sidewalk, Saturday, March 30th.
And, you know, they came down during, about a month ago with all the wind, and now this Saturday, we're gonna have even more wind. You know, it's supposed to be very windy on Saturday. And I still have, you know, there's 2 other pine trees in the backyard that have to come down, but they're not on the,
Nick, it's gonna have to wait. I mean, it just has to wait, because this is a permit process. You should have come to us for trying to amend the permit. Your permit's still open, his permit's still open on the property. The order of conditions hasn't been closed out, and it's still in effect, so it's still valid until, I believe, the fall. So, you know, I mean, we could do this as part of his order of conditions, either amend his permit or approve it as a field change, get that documented on record, and then we can have him do the plantings and then close it out, but we can't do anything right now.
okay. My last house, that was all conservation land as well. And, you know, I took down trees, I planted new trees.
Well, I can tell you that if the commission, if we go out and review and we see, you know, trees that are dead and dying, you know, those are the things that we don't have trouble with. Having been on the lot, I don't remember that many dead and dying trees along there. I drove by and took a look, and most of the trees there standing looked to be in pretty good shape. So, in my view, I think it makes sense that we get you on the site walk and for the 30th, and we can all take a look and then come up with a plan to, if there really are some trees that need to come down, we'll absolutely amend your existing order and take care of those, because we're not looking to get your property damaged.
Yes,
And from a permit standpoint, the fact that the permit is still open actually makes it easier on you paperwork-wise, makes it easier on all of us. So we can incorporate that into your existing permit, so it shows as a record that it was approved that way on your permit. So,
Okay.
you know, he actually did you a favor in this instance based on the circumstances by not closing it out, so.
Yeah, I felt it, yeah, those trees should have came down before I even moved in, so, the way they were, so, you know, okay, so.
So we'll see you on Saturday.
The 30th.
The 30th.
Okay.
Usually, our site walks, we'll probably see you sometime between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around there.
Okay, I'll be there.
Okay.
All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do we have any updates on the Crawford Street, Alonso, Fitchburg redevelopment and MBTA?
I gave the attorney, Mr. Alonso's attorney, a list of 4 engineers in the region.
Yep.
He wanted 4.
Yep.
I gave him 4 that commonly work around here. He is soliciting bids from them, and we should get something by the April 1st deadline we gave him, so he can
Okay.
turn something in.
Great.
The 4 engineers I gave him were Duchamp and Dillis, Whitman and Bingham, Hannigan Engineering, and David Ross.
Okay. Any updates on 101 Pleasant Street?
Going to hearing next Wednesday morning at 10. I have had some communications with Cathal Brady and the bonds person yesterday. I explained the situation to the bondsman, who sent an email to Cathal asking a question, to which I got the classic, let's all have a conference call on it, which, you know, we've heard before and never happens. So I sent a response to Cathal and the bondsman today with a copy of the prior bond that same company put out, along with the schedule that Jamie Rowe and Jack Rodequins had come up with, that Jack Rodequin signed off on, materials, costs, etc., and said this is the exact same circumstance, nothing has changed, no work has been done in the affected areas. This quote and the specs enclosed are essentially identical, write your bond to that. And I also told Cathal, no more requests for phone calls that don't happen. If he wants to say something to the commission, he should come to a meeting, and that would be it. I think, based on my interactions with the bondsman, this issue should be resolving itself very soon. So I'm looking at the end of the tunnel, because, the light at the end of the tunnel.
years.
Well, between Danny Gardner and Mr. Brady, yes.
Yeah. Any updates on
But
Powell?
there is a magistrate's hearing next Wednesday morning.
Any updates on Powell Stone and Gravel?
He is actually going for an enforcement conference at DEP tomorrow morning to review the proposed administrative consent order, which would basically be their version of a enforcement order. It's like it's a multi-page order telling them this is when you gotta file an NOI, this is what you gotta do for remediation. They'll tell them things like that, and we should get copied on all of that, as well as the fines.
And then the last three under enforcement, 155 Reservoir Road, Emerald Place Beach, and Shady Point, there's no updates.
I've been speaking to the residents at 155 Reservoir. Everybody seems a lot more willing to work together to come up with a common solution that may be acceptable to the commission. So looking to hear from them by the May 1st deadline.
Great.
Just on that, I did listen to all 3 hours of your last meeting. Or 3.5 hours, yes.
Hey, Carl?
Yeah.
Bless you.
Yeah. It wasn't one sitting, I'll tell you that. One thing because I couldn't see prints and things, the little area that, on the, I forget which lot it is, the last.
You're gonna be talking about lot 7. Yep.
Okay, yeah, that little corner, has that been fixed, and is that now in the numbers that are being used?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, good.
Any updates on the land acquisition proposal? Saliba, Northfield Road.
Rich, did you want to do the update on the Saliba?
Well, at this point, has the Board of Selectmen made a request for a member?
They talked about it at their last meeting, but I don't know if anything official came.
I haven't received any official communications, no.
Okay. Yeah, at this point, until they make a request for a member, we don't really have an update.
Yeah, they did pass they did pass that motion though, right? To set that commission up, or whatever you call it, task force. Okay.
Yes.
So they will be looking for a member.
Right.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to the draft order of conditions discussion for LSIC. Rich, you posted on the cloud a document that combines all of the...
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yep, everything that we talked about and approved at the February 20th meeting has been updated.
Is that the one that says LSIC order of conditions updated? Says modified March 20th. They all say what's the title of the document, Rich? I'm having a hard time finding it.
I believe the one you just read.
I'm not even there. Where?
The one with today's date on it.
It says updated 2/2019 is the one.
Give me a second to get there.
If I look on the cloud under LSIC.
Yep. LSIC order of conditions.
Then there's 3 documents that I see.
Yeah, so the one from 2/6, I believe, was the one that you had generated.
Yeah, I just opened that one. That's the one with the red and the blue and the yellow and the greens.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's not that. It's not the 220. Okay. Where?
All of them are like that. I don't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I don't know why it made 3. Sorry about that.
we get there through the lakes, and then what? LSIC order of
So,
conditions?
Bob,
Yeah.
I added, so it's LSIC order of conditions updated at meeting 2/2019. Oh, no, the other two say Shirley Reservoir order conditions. The one I did says LSIC
Yep.
as the name of the document.
And it says 2/2019?
Yeah, does it say LSIC order of
Yeah.
conditions?
Well, that's
Yep,
still,
that's the one.
so I'm confused with, because like, it still has stuff in there like discussion point and stuff like this. Or is this intended to
I
be?
should have it canceled out.
Yeah, you're right, Bob.
Yeah, so the section in the drawdown was done prior to February 20th. So the two blue lines in there, I left because that was stuff that we did not discuss on the 20th. Starting with aquatic vegetation control, going down. Those are all the points that we talked about on the 20th that I updated.
But as Bob said, in item 2, there's still the blue, which is this discussion point, which we need to pull that out, right?
Which we can delete those. We just didn't go over them on the 20th.
Lake Shirley Binder.
Thank you. So we got through aquatic vegetation control, algae control.
On the 20th, we went through the entire order of conditions,
Yep.
starting with aquatic vegetation control.
And so my question is, for instance, like if we take and you look under annual reporting,
Yeah,
number 7,
okay.
it says, right now it says in blue, discuss third-party survey or peer review every third year. Also discuss having annual survey done late August, all that stuff. Need to add language on annual survey requirements?
When we discussed it on the 20th, we left that one line open. We did not come up with a firm decision on that. I believe Carl was going to review the difference between what we get from the annual reports currently and what was in the 3-year comprehensive weed and lake assessment to see what the difference was for what points we would be looking for.
I gotta say, I don't know why we would ask for a different person to do the weed survey every third year.
Well,
Well, we actually did discuss that, Bob. Unfortunately, you weren't there.
I listened
One of
to
the
it.
concerns was...
I listened to every word.
Okay.
That was also a long meeting.
They're all long.
No, but again, I updated this as we discussed it on the 20th, so that one item was left open, which we can certainly finish the discussion now. Because that point was left open on the 20th, and we were going to be generating a map of the points for clarification or clarity testing and algae count testing. Those were the other 2 points that were still open from the 20th.
right, and I had that action, I was hoping to get a document that I could actually mark up. Matt, did we request a document that's not a PDF, that's not buried in the, so I could mark up?
You want something you can mark up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get you something to mark up, sure.
On the, actually, there were two things we just touched on. The third party, I think was historical, we haven't done it in a long time, but But I think it's important to get a different set of eyes. It's just like any major contract that we have, that you have a peer review. You know, you need, every now and then, you need different sets of eyes on these things. And we had talked about that, and matter of fact, it was one of the missions I had that I hope at COLAP I can accomplish, is to find people who are willing to do that survey, should we require it. So I think that's important.
Would you be open to a different time frame, as opposed to 3 years, do every 5 years?
I'm open to discussing anything.
A third party, because, you know, for example, like, when they inspect dams for the Corps of Engineers, usually they do an annual inspection, then they have a more in-depth inspection every 5 or 10 years or something like that. 3 years just seems like it's a short window to me.
Yeah, I think the most important part is getting another set of eyes on it. Whether it's 3 or 5, I don't think is a killer.
Yeah.
Either way. We're certainly overdue, so it should be, if we're going to do it,
Sure.
we should get started with one, and then if the next one's 5 years, then that's fine. The only significance of 3 was that's the length of the permits
Sure.
usually, so it, you know, you're thinking about these things, but.
I mean, write it in every 5th year, starting in 2020 or something like that, so 2020, 2025, and then that's my thought. I don't know how the other commissioners feel.
I think that's a good idea. I think that's fine. If things don't change that often, it's sort of a calibration point, make sure we're all still on track. And I did go back to the prior reports that were done by Geosyntec, and there is quite a bit of information that's in those that's not in these. Some of that information, Richard, has been put into this requirement, you know, some of the O2 levels and some of the things that were put in here, plug a few of those holes, but there's still other, primarily in the water quality section, not in the surveys or anything else, but the water quality data, you know, oxygen over, you know, depths and inlet. So some of those things are in here, but not all of them. And I would suggest in the 5-year, we still, you know, we not only have a different eyes, but we also get a little bit more, get a little more data than we would require every year.
I personally would like us to have a clean copy of this without strike-throughs and without, you know, add-ins for us to vote on at the April 3rd meeting. Is that what I personally would like to see? I think there's a lot of ambiguity. We got stuff in blue, we got stuff in green, we got stuff in red, and I'd like a clean copy just with the text that we're actually going to adopt.
I agree.
I would agree with that. The other technical point that's in this blue, before we blow it away, is the survey date, this annual survey date. And this became more clear to me in my review of the annual report. You know, these reviews are late September or early October. And by then, it really isn't representing vegetation of interest, which is in the summer. For instance, I can't remember which one it is, whether it's curly pond leaf or bushy pond leaf. One of those is not existent at all. They don't find any by the time the survey's done, but it's certainly there in the summer. So it's really of less value if you're going to try to take any message from that regarding the next year's expected condition. So I think we should, you know, require that to be done either in August or maybe no later than the beginning of September. But you go past that, and certain species are just gone. They're all done.
Sure. Well, yep.
And it used to be, matter of fact, if you go way back to the first order of conditions from this commission, when these things were being done, the deep drawdowns, it was actually done in July. It was required to be done in July. I think that's kind of soon, but August is representative.
So to that end, what did we decide on number 7 for reporting?
I think the suggestion on the table was to have a third-party survey every 5 years.
Every
And-
5 years.
And
with
maybe
the-
starting in 20, so it's a nice even.
Right, exactly, exactly. With every 5 years, with a first inspection or third-party inspection in the year 2020.
And I'd like to suggest that we have.
Every 5 years, starting in what year?
2020?
Okay?
He's updating the document now.
And then the other thing is, putting a date on that survey, a target date. I'd suggest late August, no later than the first week in September. Scheduling might be a problem if they're out doing things with the surveys, but I think maybe earlier in the.
Anything prior to July is too early?
Prior to July.
I guess, is this the post-treatment survey?
Yeah, this is the one that's now being done either the last week of September or the first week of October.
So you're already getting some die-off.
So you get no, I think it's.
You're getting some
early.
cold weather die-off already.
Right.
Yeah.
And I say, if you look back historically, all the database is actually back in July, and it did slowly creep towards the end of the year, and then.
Well,
it's-
typically, the chemical treatment's been around July 15th or so, correct?
Yeah.
So if the treatment's been around July 15th, giving it a month and then doing a survey?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if it, mid-August, to me, it would be perfect if
Yeah.
that's not, if you can get people to do it then. I don't know, Matt, what do you think in terms of the growth? I mean, you want to have something that you look at it, you have, meaningful numbers, I mean, right now you look at it, and there are plants that are missing by the time the survey's taken, but in the summer, they're absolutely there.
Yeah, what you're saying sounds logical.
Usually, the beginning of August, mid-August, we're focused on algae. That's usually when algae historically has happened, is the beginning of August.
Yeah.
Because we always pray for the Labor Day, and then we like to worry about algae.
Yeah, so late August or early September would be fine then.
Yeah, I would say no later than the first week in September, but August should be the goal.
So by Labor Day.
There you go.
The post-treatment survey should be completed by Labor Day annual.
Yeah, I think that's nice, clean.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Has
Okay.
anybody asked what other lakes do? Do you have data that shows what other lakes do?
I don't know if anyone else has.
We used to do it in July. The order of conditions used to be July.
That we did the year-end survey in July?
It's not a year-end survey. It's the survey. It's the vegetation survey. It's the annual survey. It's not meant to be year-end. It's meant to be representative.
No, we do a pre-season and post-season.
You do a pre-treatment.
No, we do a pre-survey in May.
Well, you didn't last year, but,
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We did a pre-survey in May,
okay.
and we do a year-end survey in usually middle of September. We do a year-end survey.
I think Carl does raise a interesting point that some of the weeds that we'd like, possibly could sample may have naturally died off, whether the weed treatment was effective or not by the time we're in mid-September to early October, which is why we, considering move up, trying to get that treatment done by Labor Day.
Survey.
The survey done by Labor Day, the post-treatment.
Yeah, I can't answer because I know aquatic, they do 80% of their business in those 4 months, so I don't know his availability.
That was gonna be my only point. There's like 2 to 3 firms that do this period at the end.
Sure.
And they're all flat out all summer long. So that would be my only concern with, with date constraints.
I think it's a reasonable request. I think we should probably actually get feedback from Solitude or whoever does these surveys, just get their opinion on if they feel it makes a difference.
Yeah. Right, it was curly pond leaf because even the report, highlighted it, that they didn't observe any, but it was there in the summer. It just had died off.
Yep.
So, you know, they're busy, but that means they're taking orders and they're taking contracts and doing work. But we can find out, but I think it's an appropriate target by Labor Day. And if it can't be done, then they come back to us and say, you know, we can't find anybody to do it. Because again, just to get to Bill, it's not even just the weed, you know, because at this survey is when they're supposed to be taking other water quality characteristics.
Sure.
And the water quality in October, which is when it's gravitated to, isn't as
It's improved. Well,
the weather's different.
I think we've seen the beginning of August, the dog days of summer is when the water quality is the worst, and it improved thereafter. Matt, is this something you could reach out to Solitude and get their opinion on?
Yeah, I'm actually making a note to do that right now.
Great.
I had a question on number 4 in reporting. You know, it says the report will provide a review and a statement regarding activities on each lake management action as identified in the lake management section, plan sections 5 and 6. Regardless of activities, the annual report must contain information on strategies, plans, and actions to pursue alternative methods of nuisances should be plant control and watershed nutrient source reduction. So we're asking them to report on things that they talked about in their lake management plan, and they said, we're not gonna do these things. You know, because those are the last section that talks about, you know, alternatives and
Right.
stuff like this. And they say in their report, well, we're not, in the lake management plan says, we're not gonna do these things. And then we turn around here and we say we want them to report on them, whether they did them or not. I just don't understand why we're doing that.
I understand the sentiment, but I don't think it's gonna change. They may come back and say, hey, we think we're effectively managing the weeds
I mean, it's not a big deal to say we're not doing any of the stuff that we said we weren't gonna do. I just don't know why we're asking them to do that. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Because a lot of what's in there, they, doesn't say they're not gonna do it. There are certainly a few things in there that say it doesn't make sense, but there are things in there there's a lot of things in there that say that it does make sense. Now, they may not do it, and they haven't, you know, barriers or whatever, and that's fine. They can just simply report, you know, no activity, we didn't do it because of whatever reason.
Personally, I have no issue with that, because if they think their strategy is effective, they can just say as much, and if they want to propose an alternative moving forward, they can do that as well, so.
It was a question, I don't feel.
No, I'm just saying, personally, it doesn't bother me.
And just for completeness, the last sentence, Bob, is in that the annual report must contain, that's directly out of our prior order conditions and the current Shirley order conditions, so it's nothing new or has to be created special for us.
Okay. So are the sampling stations, the 2018 sampling stations, are we gonna?
That's the one I'm working at. We read in concept what they were, but they're not really marked
We're gonna
on
incorporate
that
those on the-
chart very well. And then some words
Okay.
to explain what they are when you go to.
So we're not using this map that's.
Yeah, we're gonna use that map, but we need to update it. There was some discussion on a few points that we were gonna have, I think, 5 instead of 3. I've got my notes, but it's basically that map, but with some minor changes to it. And I'll have that.
So you're picking the stations?
The stations have pretty much been picked, yeah, already. It's more the sampling and when you go from, you know, when you hit 5 feet clarity.
That was done
then
prior
what we
with
do.
Solitude, correct? The stations?
They submitted these stations. I still would be very helpful to get the email that went along with that, Matt, because they explain the different symbols.
Yep.
But if I can get those 2 things, I'll have by the 3rd, the proposal of what I think we discussed, and we can change it.
Okay. So hopefully we can get that the week prior, so everyone gets a chance to review and
Yeah,
and are
absolutely.
ready for the meeting, so we can make short work of it. So it looks like we're at the end of the draft order conditions with these minor changes tonight, and forthcoming changes on the sampling plan. So we'll have that ready for next meeting. The next order, I think, is we need to entertain motion for the extension.
So I'm gonna make a clean copy of this document, send it to all parties, and then we reconvene on this, all parties together at April 3rd. Okay.
Sounds good.
No, the extension is tonight, yes. We're talking about the order of conditions.
So right now, this is the end of the 6-month extension expires.
In April, and they've done a timely request for the extension.
And it expires on April
4th.
April 4th, so the day after the next meeting. Okay. Any feelings from the commissioner on the extension?
Yeah, and it's not so much on, extension is an extension. The problem I have is that we don't have everything we're supposed to have on this order of conditions. Never mind this next one. I did go through the year-end report, the annual report, not year-end, annual report, and there's, I probably could have just copied my ones from last year. All of the delinquencies and things that are not there are not there again. I've got 2 pages of areas where there's either questions, but not, few of them are questions, most of them are just pointing out that it's where it's not complying with the order of conditions. And there's no surprise, it's basically the same ones. But that's an issue to me, when you go to get an extension. If you're not complying with the current order of conditions, you need to understand why. There should be, in the order of conditions, there is a requirement to have the annual report presented so that you can have this discussion. And I think we still need that, so that we can have the discussion. The other element that I would not vote for an extension without, that we're owed, is an updated lake management plan. That's overdue. That's supposed to be every 3 years, and that was May or June of 2015, so.
Okay.
Those are the things that I think we need for any kind of meaningful extension. Now, do you?
So, the lake management plan we had expired when?
It's not so much it expires, it's supposed to be updated every 3 years. That's what the order of conditions says. And it was approved, I think, May or June of 15.
Personally, I'd like to see, once we have the order of conditions in the next meeting agreed upon, I'd like to see us vote for a clean extension rather than do another interim extension. I don't know that if we can do another interim extension and what the process is on that. Matt, can you speak to that a little bit? If we have the ability to do another interim extension, or if we have to should approve
You could do an extension up to 3 years.
Okay.
You could do it anywhere from a day to 3 years.
So even though we've just given one, we still could do another one for a month or whatever to clean up things. 'Cause I don't know if, when you left, man.
Well, that was Mr. Harrison. He was looking to see if his wife was still here.
Oh. So we're just saying that, to me, there are 2 gates that I don't think it's right to extend an order of conditions when you have a history of noncompliance, and it's at that day that you're asked for it, there's noncompliance. So I think we need to clean up the noncompliances before we issue an extension. And the noncompliances right now are the annual report is got huge holes in it. I mean, it's basically, and I go through all the details tonight or next time, I mean, what we've been given is basically Solitude's report to the LSIC. The objective is not to comply with the order of conditions. So there's lots of things in the order of conditions that it doesn't address, because they don't have anything to do with it, quite frankly.
hold on, Matt.
I'm sorry.
I understand that there's been discrepancies along the way, but in my view, I think the LSIC has made a good faith effort to do what's right in terms of reporting whatnot. Is it perfect? No. There are discrepancies moving forward, but I think they've worked in the spirit of the order of conditions, but I'll acknowledge that there are several discrepancies that we need to be addressed. I personally feel that we could approve an extension and then allow them to work in the good faith effort that they have right along with us over the last few years to continue to work to improve the lake management plan and those sorts of things. That's my personal opinion. Matt, you had something?
Well, I mean, the question was asked procedurally, what would it entail as far as whether to approve or not approve an extension permit, okay? If you guys feel that there are some compliance issues that need to be addressed, all you're gonna do by not approving an extension is create further non-compliance issues, because now you'll have an order of conditions that is no longer valid.
Yeah, I'm not proposing we let the order of conditions lapse, but I am proposing that we don't.
You can still extend the permit because you've taken the matter up and there's a timely request. However, if you do not approve the permit extension prior to the permit's expiration date, technically nothing can take place at that point.
Yeah, and I would strongly resist any move to allow this order conditions to lapse. But I also strongly resist because we've had these same issues that we've talked about every year for 4 years, and they're not changing. So, I think we need to get some, well, the lack of the updated lake management plan should be a given. That's updating a plan, right? And it's required every 3 years. It should be in the works, and we should have had it in June.
Unless they look at the plan and say, we think the plan's good as is, we're gonna, resubmit this plan.
That's up to them, what they submit.
Right.
I'm not saying what they gotta submit, or that we'll like it or not like it, or accept it or use it or whatever, but it's a requirement.
Sure.
So, it's a clear requirement. We can discuss the delinquencies in the annual report. In that regard, I'm more interested in getting a firm commitment across the table that they're going to comply with the order conditions. With that, understanding the order conditions and a firm commitment they're going to comply, then I would support an extension, because the one that's delinquent now is never going to get fixed.
Are you saying they're not compliant because they're not doing things they're supposed to do, or because they're not including things on reporting that they're supposed to report on?
Both. They don't have the data that's required in the order conditions, and they're not reporting on the things that are required in the order conditions, so both. And none of them are new.
So most of it is missing data or reporting on data.
At the simplest level, it's not complying with the order conditions. And I think we're sending a bad message, and I'm not sure we're doing our job if we extend a permit that is in non-compliance and it's not being actively pursued to fix that non-compliance. Right? So I guess the good news is we meet on the 3rd.
Yeah.
And I would hope we would at least have commitments that the order conditions that we're about to approve will be complied with. I think we should have that discussion in the order conditions. It's supposed to be, the annual report is supposed to be presented so we can deal real time with these issues. So I think we should make sure that the things that have been non-compliant, that there is commitment to become compliant. And at a bare minimum, unless the lake management plan is about ready to be submitted, which I have no reason to believe. I could foresee being okay with a commitment that you will have it by such and such a date. Not way in the future, like before the first treatment.
Yeah, say
And,
June
you know,
1st or
because I'd
something
rather
like
have that than, you know, what you said and just, well, here's, you know, here's last year's, you know.
Well, they're well within the rights to do that as well.
They're in the rights to do it, and we're in the rights to say that's not acceptable.
Sure.
Here's the only concern I have with that, is if for some reason we don't have an April 3rd meeting, then on April 4th it expires, if we don't extend it tonight. You know, there's a blizzard, there's a quorum issue.
Sure.
There's something else that happens April 3rd, then it expires the next day. I don't feel comfortable with that.
That's a good point, Ken.
That is a good point.
Can I say?
Yes, come on up, Joanna.
Joanna Bellato, 362 Sunset Lane, President of the Lake Shirley Improvement Corporation. We've had this conversation about non-compliant. Please don't say on TV I'm non-compliant, because then people don't think we're utilizing their money properly, and we're here yet again saying non-compliant. Mr. Birch, actually at the last meeting, when we conducted the workshop, again started to talk of non-compliance, the well issue, and I had in my docket, because he said we never said that, we didn't say you were non-compliant, and we referred to Mr. Luck's little sheet. I just had it as we were talking.
Take your time.
This little sheet that he provided all of us, showing what we were non-compliant in and compliant in, that I still carry around with me.
Good.
And Mr. Bursch said, you know, we're in disagreement on what was compliant, non-compliant, via people's perception of what the data reads. And we're not going to talk about that. We're going to move forward on creating the new order of conditions. And yet now here we are again, talking about how for 5 years we've been non-compliant. And I really request that we either tell me I'm non-compliant, what I missed, fine me, do whatever you want to do, and we can appeal that, or stop saying we were non-compliant for 4 years. Because I'm tired of being accused of being non-compliant when we as a board work very diligently with Matt, with Ken Wagner, with Dominic to make sure we're meeting the expectations we think. So that's all I...
So, Mr. Chairman, non-compliance is clear. I've documented it every year for probably the last 4 years. There's never been any dispute or proof that my assessment is wrong. I mean, because it's black and white. You know, I mean, and the non-compliance is that we're talking about is primarily is shown up primarily in the annual report. Okay? And that's where the requirement is the clearest, because it's the order of conditions, and it's the clearest that it's not there because it's black and white. Either the pH samples are taken and in the report, or they're not, and they're required in the order of condition, and they're not in the thing. So that's non-compliant. If something required is not in the annual report, then I call it compliant. Maybe other people call it something else, but to me, it's black and white. It's not a shade of gray.
Sure, but the solution isn't to go back and amend pH readings that were never taken if they weren't taken. You can't, but your sentiment earlier that moving forward, we're going to work to make sure that we more closely follow what's in the order of conditions. I think that's a good point, and I don't have any doubt, and I'm speaking for Joanne, that the LSIC is certainly going to make a commitment as they have, because in my view, Carl, I think they've done a pretty good job of meeting the conditions that we put forth. Like I said, it hasn't been perfect, but
But I disagree, and it's well documented, and what concerns me is, that, if I saw a good firm intent and good intent, as you say, then I would be delighted. What I see is clear their noncompliance, and what I see is the person responsible continuously sitting down and saying, we're compliant. So if you can't agree on, if they don't accept that they're not compliant on black and white issues, then I have a problem with them ever having the right intent to be compliant and the good intent, I mean, it's just inconsistent. And I stand behind that chart. It's well documented. It's black and white. The current report has basically the same issues. There is no plan. They require, there's water quality data that just isn't taken. It's not reported on. That's how I know it's not taken.
Yep.
But it's not taken. There's supposed to be, there's a clear requirement in the order of conditions to provide a plan for the next year. There is no plan for the next year, other than keep doing chemical treatment and drawdown. There's no plan that addresses any other of the...
no plan or acknowledgement that they're going to maintain the same treatment method.
It's clear in the report, and because the report is written by Solitude, and it's not an annual
Sure.
report. It's a Solitude report, and clearly their plan is, to monitor, do the, testing, do the treatments as required, and so forth, and that's good. So the chemical treatment part of the plan is good. Drawdown is mentioned by Solitude, which is good. It's kind of a plan. We're going to keep doing drawdown. But the requirement in the GEIR is very clear that you need to do other things. And even the own consultants talk about the importance of the phosphorus reduction. So there should be some plans regarding phosphorus reduction. There are requirements for doing, outreach to education and outreach. In the report, there's no evidence of it, at least. I can't say they're not doing it, but there's no evidence, but it's required to be in the report. So they're very simple black and white things.
We gave actual Facebook pages, emails, letters, newsletters that we've mailed out to the residents on Lake Shirley.
There's nothing in the report on it.
Right, so I think what Carl's saying is some of these efforts that you have made should be documented. It could be as simple as a couple page letter on top of Solitude's report that says, here's the other things that Solitude doesn't address that we need to document, notes on this. What was your outreach this year? We, notified residents via Facebook pages and signage of, potential chemical treatments, all those sorts of things. I think there are clear strategies moving forward that they could use, and I think it does sound like a simple, few pages on top that accompany the Solitude report. I don't know how the other members feel.
Just to highlight that, because, and we talked before about Bob was concerned about, why we have the talk about the lake management plan.
I asked this
that's part of why, can I finish, please? And that's why, we're putting that in the order of conditions to make it clear, because if they talked about those things, then it would become compliant, because we'd be talking about the outreach and education, we'd be talking about other methods, talking about phosphorus reduction. Again, independent, you're not saying what it has to say. It can say, we didn't do anything this year, we couldn't afford to do anything, whatever, but it at least acknowledges that the GEIR is very clear that you need to go beyond, a single method that you keep doing. And you need to have a integrated plan that touches many different strategies and techniques, and they're talked about in the lake management plan. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, for example, Carl, I'm looking at the year-end report. Here, you say there's no, they haven't anticipated management in 2019 section. Doesn't that tell
What does it
us
say?
what they're gonna do moving
What does
forward.
it say they're gonna do?
They're gonna,
They're gonna treat with chemicals and...
right, but that's their plan.
But the GEIR expects you to be doing more, that you shouldn't, that if all you're doing, and if you, I can take the quotes right out of the GEIR.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'll let you jump in, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'm getting dry.
My problem is that it seems like there's a certain gotcha approach that we're taking here. We're gonna hold your, to me, that's one of the reasons I wanted to work on the order of conditions. It seems to me like the order of conditions should take, and it should narrowly define what it is we want them to say. And that they know when they've done the things that are narrowly defined in the order of conditions, that they've been successful, and we can say, good job, or we can say, no, we didn't like this, or we can say, and all that. But to say, well, they also have to do everything that's in the GEIR, or they have to do everything that's in their annual report, whether they did it or not, it just seems to me like it sets up this kind of opportunities for, I don't like the feeling tone of the meetings. I don't like the feeling tone of the meetings. We come here and, we have...
It's adversarial as opposed to cooperative.
It's adversarial, and I don't love, and it just seems unnecessary, and it seems like sometimes it's personal, rather than, it's not about the wetlands, it's about, who did what to whom and why, and that's my concern, and that's why when we were talking about the order of conditions, I wanted to narrow them and make them closely tailored to what it is we expect them to do, and report on just what it is that we expect them to do, and so that everyone's reading from the same script and we have clear expectations. And that's what those are my thoughts.
And I couldn't agree more, and I would hope that you would expect that once we agree to the order of conditions, that you would expect them to be complied with. Or would you expect that it's just sort of a suggestion and...
I would expect them to be complied with.
Okay.
But as we went through the order of conditions, the entire way, it just seemed like every time there was an opportunity to take and require them to do more reporting and take more measurements that I'm not sure were material, that I'm not sure, are going to improve the quality of the lake and that were necessary. We're regulators. We're telling them what they have to do. That's where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is nothing, I mean, to their credit, they've spent a lot of money with Ken Wagner and the spin-off company, whatever they're called, to get inputs on...
You mean Solitude?
No. What's the company called?
WRS?
WRS.
Is his
To look at the lake and not, not from the chemical treatment, but do some real science and look at the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And they've come back and said, you got to do something about the phosphorus,
Sure.
right? Is there any
Well,
mention of phosphorus
in this
reduction?
Solitude says, they recommend LSIC continues to, I'll read right from the report, the last paragraph on second to last paragraph on page 11. We recommend LSIC continue to pursue an integrated approach to manage nuisance plants and algae utilizing drawdown herbicide, algicide as required. To address overall lake management and long-term goals, the LSIC should continue the investigation and implementation of alternative in-lake methods, watershed management, public education, and diagnostic assessments. That's where I think, another couple pages that says, on a paragraph like this, we say, okay, how can we build on this? What's, something we're going to implement or something that we're going to do based on these recommendations. And I think that's reasonable. But I also don't think we should be crucifying LSIC for every little discrepancy that we disagree on. We should take it as an opportunity to say, hey, these are things that we need to do better and continue to do better. And since I've been on the commission, I think the management at, by Ellis IC has improved from where it was 4 years ago to where it is now. I mean, the lake management plan, that was a huge undertaking for them. And they produced a pretty quality document.
Yes.
Does it need to be updated? Absolutely. But these are things that, you know, I think overall, we should really try and take a positive attitude in this relationship. I think it would really help all parties.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a lot easier to take a positive attitude if they would comply with the order conditions.
Understood. I would like to talk to members or poll the members on their feeling on an extension at this time, because I think Ken brings up a good point. If we do another extension, then they have to submit a formal request for an extension of that extension, correct?
That is correct. So say you give them an extension till like September, just theoretically.
Yeah.
They would say it's September 4th. They would have to get a request for the extension to me by August 4th, just like they did this time. I received a request on March 4th.
My personal feeling,
I couldn't put it on the last agenda, by the way, because it was under the 48 hours I would have needed to put it on the agenda. Because the agenda was already published and it was less than 48 hours to the meeting at the time I saw the email, so.
my personal feeling is I don't think we should let this extension go long, but I would like to entertain either May 1st or June 1st or something on that order. I don't know what the other members feel. Katie?
I think May 1st would be a good.
I don't feel comfortable leaving that tight of a.
Agreed.
But I agree that I don't think we should go out more than a month, especially if we could come to some conclusion at the next meeting, you know.
And I appreciate those inputs, and I think you're right, and I think it's the right direction. I'm not afraid of going too far out. I just don't want it, you know, to be full extension without these things being addressed. I think if you could go out as far as like June 15th even, as far as I'm concerned. Because the one thing you got to take into account, in order to get an extension, they have to, we have to request a month before.
Right.
So they'd have to request by May 15th. So we'd have to, it would give us time to get everything done and done right, and get all the right things in place so that we can go forward positively.
Well, I mean,
without being under the gun.
We could give her an extension tonight to May 1st, and she could request an extension tomorrow.
I guess, yeah.
And then we'd be set for that. I mean, I think the feeling I'm getting from most members is that we're probably pretty close to approving this order of conditions. Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to get a little more time with
For the extension
is
permit,
the lake management plan.
So I've already sent
Is the submittal of that. I mean, it is overdue, so, and I suspect that's not, that's far along right now.
Yeah, no, that's true.
You know I pay $75 every time I do the extension. So if you would approve the extension tonight, Matt's gonna write it up, I gotta mail it into the registry of deeds with $75, and then
It's recorded, it has to be recorded.
it has to be recorded. And then I have to, next week, ask for an extension, you approve it, and then send them another $75 to legally have it booked.
It's a good point, which is why, I think if we went
I don't
to,
mean to be fresh.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
But I just gotta keep
No, it's a good point.
sending the $75.
another reason that I would say to go, I would like to have the extension be before the first treatment. But anywhere up to there, so to give it plenty of time, so you don't need another extension. So if we had till June 1st or whatever, that gives us plenty of time to get the lake management, get the order of conditions discussed, get everybody on the same page without being under the gun and without having to get another request for an extension. So that we no more $75. If we extended this till June 1st tonight, then certainly 30 days before that, I hope we're all in such great shape where we take a vote before June 30th, 1st, right? And there's never a need for an extension, another extension.
Bob?
So if we extend the order of conditions, Does that mean we have to agree on all the red, green, blue, and white and black wording in that document tonight?
No.
What does it mean? What are we extending?
We're extending the current order as it exists right now.
Okay,
That's on our website, the orders. That's,
thank you. I understand now. Question answered.
Is anyone open to extending the order conditions a full 3 years at this point?
Not a chance.
All right. Joanna, Carl brings up a point about the lake management plan. Do you think you guys can review that in the next few weeks and either tell us that you're going to resubmit it as is, or make any updates to that LMP over the next few weeks?
Where are you in your lake management plan?
actually, Dominic, we've had 3 meetings, on it, and Dominic sent the draft to me on Friday, that I was actually over there finishing, this is the 15, so this is the updated one. So, I can't see, no, that was 2018. But yeah, we're at now just editing the final draft.
Great. Good. That's super.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's where, yeah.
Good.
And when you say we, do you have a committee or something, or?
It's the same 5 people. Myself, Sue, Dominic, Ashley, and Gary Spint is a new resident. He joined in this year helping as well. Dominic comes usually to my house, and we spend about 3 hours going back and forth on them, and because we're trying to align them with the order of conditions, because the two, I feel, the 2 documents intertwine and bounce each other. So it's trying to get more clarity around that, so they align.
With that, I could see this taking, 1, everybody agrees on an order of conditions next meeting. 2, we get a chance to see your draft LMP and then provide you any feedback we have. So then I think the 2nd April meeting, we're probably ready to have that taken care of. But I do agree that May 15th or June 1st, somewhere around there, seems like a reasonable date for an extension at this point.
Either one of those.
Well, I regret that because I didn't know it was going to cost you guys an additional $75.
Oh, and then,
But-
I don't mind doing the second one, but then for a week to do a third one is where it gets crazy. That's where it's gonna start to get.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not envisioning you have to do another one. Am I missing something?
No, well, Todd had said that, they essentially, next week could do another extension out.
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend that. Like-
No, and that's what he said.
Yeah, okay.
Well, my recommendation is to extend it to June 6th. The reason why I say June 6th, which is a Thursday, is it will give you the April meetings to try to settle the order of conditions. But if something happens and we have delays because of the lake management plan and we need to discuss and make changes, it gives you the month of May into the first meeting of June to get this issue resolved. Okay, without having to go into July. You don't want to go into July because we don't have a meeting until the 3rd Wednesday, because the first Wednesday is July 4th.
Great.
I'm still hoping we can settle the order of conditions at the next meeting. Because after that, I won't be at the next 3 meetings, and I'd like to participate in the final vote on this order of conditions. So.
And I just want to make sure I'm not holding up anything on the order of conditions.
Order conditions, no?
I think we're almost there.
Because I have my part, so I just want to make sure there's nothing I can do to help that process for you to complete them.
No, they basically just went through it, came up with everything that they wanted to agree on to put in a clean document. I'm going to take that clean document now. I'm going to
Which I haven't seen, so you all know.
Well, I'm going to produce the clean document. I'm going to send it out to everybody, I'm going to send it out to you, and then we will convene in 2 weeks at the April 3rd meeting and go over that document, and then everybody come to agreement on it. If we have to redline it again to make other changes, we agree on it, I produce another document, clean document, and we move on from there. If we could do the lake management plan at the same time, great. You know, if you can authorize Dominic to submit the draft, you know, we could look at that too and maybe kill two birds with one stone, get it all out of the way. You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, either way, I'm gonna be watching these deadlines, and we gotta make sure that, you know, you ask for that, whatever they give a deadline, make sure we get that extension requested timely.
In my view, if we get the lake management plan, the updated lake management plan by middle April, that gives us time to, you know, everybody digests it. If we have some back and forth, we can have that discussion with you, say, hey, you know, you made this change. Maybe we do it here, maybe we don't, maybe we say it's perfect, whatever, but that gives us time to change it before we do a final approval of the extension, which we want, at the end of the day, to be that 3-year extension. So, all right, so no other comments from LSIC or the public, or from the commission?
I just have one question for Max. I want to make sure that I understand the process of when, if another extension is needed. I'm envisioning, Matt, if we, whatever that date you said, the 6th was.
The 6th of June.
So, clearly we're gonna grant an extension, I think tonight, to some date.
Yep.
And then in that period, we fully expect, hopefully in advance of that period, we fully expect to grant an extension for the full, whatever is left of the 3 years, or however that's handled. There'd be no requirement for a request for an extension in that period, right? We can do those two things without another request, right?
Unless we get
Can we extend without a request?
No, you have to have a request to extend. They could do the request early. Actually, she could request it right on the spot if we're going to do an agreement, now that I think of it.
Verbal? Did they have to file then?
Well, I was just gonna go home and write it and.
I'm just trying to avoid, that.
I don't think there's any way to
You can't
avoid
do
it at this point.
Actually, yeah, I mean, if you want to make it clean and you want to be able to have that flexibility, whatever date you give Joanna right now, say June 6th. The reason why I say June 6th is because you have to go over that order of conditions, but you also have to go over the lake management plan. And I was trying to give you guys plenty of space with the 2 April meetings and the 2 May meetings, and then finalize or sign off on the documents at the June meeting. So if you say you say June 6th, she could go home right now and send me a request to extend that June 6th extension permit now. The 30 days is the absolute drop dead deadline. She can request it earlier.
Yeah, okay.
So
that would leave the request open.
So one question I have for you, Joanna, when you provide the proposed changes to the lake management plan, are you going to submit a document with track changes? Or could you submit a document with track changes? Because that would allow us to quickly skip over the stuff that hasn't been touched and get down to the nitty gritty of what you're proposing to change.
Does that make
If you
sense
guys can
based
do
on the
that-
extent of changes? I mean, because if it's a complete rewrite, it doesn't help, but do you think that makes sense? Will it be?
If you can, great. If you can't, say, hey, we didn't track it that way, then, you know, that would be fantastic, actually.
Good idea.
To facilitate our discussion. With that, I'll accept a motion to grant an extension of the order of conditions for the LSIC until June 6th, 2019.
So moved.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote. Richard Birch?
Aye.
Bob Pease?
Aye.
Ken Jones? Aye. Carl Eck?
Aye.
Katie Childs?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you, Joanne. Next order of business, small town forest. Any updates?
No.
Okay. Any updates on the 123 Hollis Road Conservation Area?
So, we have the revised draft from Gary. Actually, hard copy. So Gary is consented to come to the second April meeting.
Okay.
So what's gonna happen is Gary will come to the second April meeting. We're trying to get the Mass Audubon gentleman to come as well. He'll do a formal presentation on this draft plan, which I'll make sure all you guys have a hard copy of.
Are you gonna scan and put that on the cloud?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at the same token, well, I'm also gonna mail you hard copies.
Okay.
And when I mail you hard copies, I'm gonna mail you this. This is Gary usually asks for these. I'm gonna mail you these to fill out for the meeting on the 17th. It's a landowner goals sheet. So if you could go through the hard I'm gonna post
We
it on
did
the cloud.
something similar for Small Town
Right.
Forest, correct?
So I'm gonna post this on the cloud, but at the same token, I'm gonna send you guys, not in a binder, but I'm gonna send you guys stapled hard copies. If you could go through it and then fill out the goal sheet that I send with it and bring the goal sheet back to the meeting for Gary when he comes in, that would be great.
Okay.
I think you guys will like this particular version. Mass Audubon had a lot of nice things to say about Gary's plan. And, they provided a lot of constructive input for this second draft, so. But Ken, you've read it, right?
Yeah, I haven't, read it super thoroughly, but I've perused it and it looks good on first glance.
All right. Are we gonna address or entertain any discussion of rules and regulations updates?
Actually, just one quick thing back to Hollis Road. I thought we were going to go out on a site walk on the 13th, Matt, with Gary and the ornithologist.
I can ask Gary about that, see if he's still available.
I thought that was the initial plan we were going forward with.
The 13th of April?
Yeah, so it would be our Saturday site walk prior to a meeting, as we always have, generally scheduled, and then the sit-down on the 17th.
Yeah, I think the last time I talked to Gary, he was waiting to hear, I gotta remind him, because he was waiting to hear back from the Mass Audubon guy. He wasn't sure the Mass Audubon guy would be able to go, but I'll send him a reminder right now.
Once we...
Yeah, because we should probably start advertising or promoting the walk for one, and then the meeting on the 17th.
Yep.
Great idea.
And the reason the 17th was selected is because it is a televised town hall meeting.
Rich?
Yep.
I think that a site walk would be great. I think a site walk for the commissioners with Gary would be beneficial to have, that maybe wasn't necessarily open to the public. I think a public site walk would be appropriate as well, but I think we should do one with Gary so the commissioners can get his sense and be able to put our input in.
We could just stagger the times on the same day, so Gary's not...
I don't know how you want to do it, but I think for me that would be helpful.
Yep.
It's easy for me to say because I won't be here to participate, but I agree with Ken, because it's very difficult, when you have members of the public there to have, an honest discussion of issues, concerns, positives and negatives kind of thing. So I think Ken has a great idea there.
All right, or perhaps we can have a site walk with the public. I fear we're gonna run into a problem if we have a hearing and presentation on the 17th and the public shows up not having been included on a site walk to see what we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's just my only concern.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I share that concern, and I have a layered concern on top of that is, we have to be very careful about open meeting laws. I mean, we can't, as a commission, go discuss things and
But you can
and
ask
things.
questions to our subject matter expert.
Yes, yes. You just have to be very careful in discussing things. Whereas if you invited the public, you could post it as a public meeting, and there would be no issues with any discussions.
Yep. I think that's a good point, Carl.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I don't think we would have a problem inviting the public as well.
So I
Just to have everybody out there.
Rich, I guess my question is, before we start advertising this, do we wait until Gary confirms that he's going to be ready for the 13th? Otherwise,
Yeah, I believe Gary had already said he was ready. I wasn't aware that the ornithologist was not contacted yet.
No, he was contacted, but I just haven't heard anything back.
Just hasn't gotten back to us yet.
Nope.
Okay. If there's nothing else on that,
So I'd like to reinforce that I think we should invite the public and make it a public meeting. It's better to know the issues up front, so just my input.
I agree.
sure. All right, are we going to discuss rules and regulations updates tonight? If I have the support of the members, I'd like to table that until a future meeting.
I would just note that it was, I forget whether it was 4 or 5 years ago, that Tom Bertram joined the commission, and the commission committed itself at that time to revising the regulations. And it seems like we never make any forward progress.
Baby steps.
I'm glad we all have a sense of humor at 20 minutes after 9.
Yeah.
I'm just, as you can tell, I'm frustrated.
Absolutely.
I'm frustrated, you know, it's like we've talked now, I remember talking at a meeting 3 years ago that we should empower our administrator to be able to look at a dead tree, you know, and come to a meeting and recommend, you know, that the person be able to take the dead tree down without having to notify all their abutters and all this other stuff. And it's 2 or 3 years later, and these people still having to do this because we haven't gotten off our butt. And so I'm just frustrated with the pace of regulation review.
I guess the only question I pose to you, Bob, is what do you propose? How do you propose we change this? We have 3-hour meetings every single time we meet. I'm not willing to be here 4 or 5 hours. I guess, what do we do to fix that? Thoughts? I mean, I agree. It's been going on for way too long, but I'm not willing to sit until midnight.
Neither am I.
So if there's thoughts, then.
I think we need to go back to that, we need a separate meeting, because, you can't start it at 9:30 at night, And if we don't have some more quality, intense time, we spend more time revisiting where were we than getting anywhere new. So these, using the 5th Wednesday or something, but committing to that and just, doing it.
So our next 5th Wednesday, I believe, is May.
There was 5.
I mean, maybe we commit to that 5th Wednesday in May. Maybe we have a special workshop for that.
Are you available, Bob? You're
back by then, right?
You're back by then?
Yeah, I'm back by, I'm back by the end of it.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Meeting minutes. February 20th and March 6th. I reviewed the 6th and the 20th. I didn't have any comments. I'm ready to approve those tonight. Other members?
Matt, did I give you any inputs on the 20th?
From?
On the minutes for the 20th? No?
Yeah, actually I incorporated those and sent them out.
I thought I did, the dates are, yeah, okay, so, with that, I'd be okay. And I, even though I wasn't at the 6th, I did, listen to the tape, and the minutes looked good, so I didn't have any input, that's why you didn't get any input, so they looked pretty good.
So I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes of February 20th as amended by Commissioner Luck.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Roll call vote. Richard Bursch.
Aye.
Ken Jones.
Aye.
Carl Luck.
Aye.
Katie Childs.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Bob stepped out, so
I make a motion we approve the minutes of March 6th as well.
I had a change for the March 6th minutes.
what was the change, Rich?
Under new business, I noted that Brandon Kibbe was going to meet with the selectmen, not had met the selectmen.
Okay, I can change that.
And he was discussing a subcommittee being formed. A subcommittee is not yet being formed, as it was an executive session, so we really don't have the outcome of that meeting.
I think, didn't we talk?
I believe they met on March 12th.
But at the time,
okay.
forward-looking, they were discussing the subcommittee. All right.
I would make my motion to reflect those changes to the minutes.
You have motion?
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call vote, Richard Bursch.
Aye.
Ken Jones.
Aye.
Carl Luck. Aye. Kitty Childs. I vote aye as well. Minutes are approved as amended. Committee reports. Any updates?
On the Trails Committee, the town manager requested that we have 8 hours of free GIS time at MRTC, or PC. I get the Trails Coalition mixed up with the...
Your acronyms.
Yeah, at any rate, she requested that we use those to develop trail maps, and so they're working on trail maps. They don't know if they'll be able to get them all done in 8 hours, but they're proceeding, so...
Okay.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
I read that about in the email about the 8 hours. Now, we've been talking about this 8 hours for almost a year. When do we get more hours?
Each calendar year.
Do we get an allotment annually?
We got 8 years every...
When is our next?
I believe it starts I'm not positive. I believe it starts January 1, but maybe it starts
does.
July 1st. I don't know.
No, it starts January 1st.
January 1st. I have it in good
Did we
authorities.
use last year's allotment?
Yes.
We did?
It's already, last year's gone.
Yeah, last year's gone. I don't
Did
know
they
if
roll
you-
over?
No, they don't roll over. And speaking with the people at PC, thank you, Ken, Lunenburg doesn't always use its allotment.
A lot of communities don't use their allotments all the time.
If we go over, are there, is it 8 hours just for Lunenburg or 8 hours allotted to the commission?
No, it's 8 hours to Lunenburg.
Okay.
And so, that we're using the Lunenburg's 8 hours, for the trails. If we go over, it's $87 an hour.
We just tell them to stop the 8 hours.
Yeah, so right now, they're gonna go up to the 8 hours, and then they're gonna let me know where they are, and so we can take a look at, do we wanna find funds? Do we wanna wait to see if we get the RTC grant?
Good night, Ken.
Just lost it.
No, we didn't.
Oh, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. Never mind.
All right, anything else, Bob?
No.
Okay. Stormwater, we can't report on because Jack isn't here. Agent report.
$88.
I don't have any legal updates. On the ADA grant, I submitted the monthly report to the Mass Office on Disabilities, essentially telling them we haven't had a chance to do any of the work right now on any of the lots because of the crazy weather, which they sent me a response back saying, yeah, that's fine. We just need to have that, a paper trail in writing, and they look forward to seeing the work on the other stuff getting done.
And so do we have we had any conversations with Jack or anybody like that, like when they're gonna do it, kind of thing?
I have to talk to Jack about that still.
Because the grant specifies, I think, what's it, June 30th or June 1st or something like that?
Yep,
So,
it's June 30th. They did say that if we were going to have a difficulty because of whatever, meeting the June 30th deadline, to let them know. They can extend that deadline.
oh, good to know. Except if we do get the RTC grant, it would be nice to have this one over and done with, because we'll be trying to use that, cycle that money through for the RTC grant, so,
Yeah, I mean, as far as the RTC grant for the reimbursement and all that, you have 2 years to implement that from the day, from when you get it. So if you were to get it this year, you would have until December 31st of 2021 to get all your reimbursements in. So we should have all that stuff well handled by then, by then.
Good.
Anything else?
No, everything else is, I mean, we've either already addressed it, and I keep these open just in case I have anything else to add, but no, everything else has been pretty much addressed through our hearings.
Okay, great. Any other comments from the commissioners? No other.
Hey, Bob, I did have one quick question on the treasurer's report.
Yes, sir.
So we've got some of these little figures that are like 2 and 3 times the beginning principal.
Yep.
Are those funds that have just never been tapped?
Exactly right.
Okay.
No one.
I take it those.
No one has ever, it appears to me that it's been decades since anyone has used the Conservation Trust funds. Decades. Based on what I see there, you know, and the amount of principal versus the amount of interest.
All right, and the small funds you did say are not assumed to have a restriction of just interest only?
That's what...
Are there restrictions on what we can use those funds for, the 4 small ones?
Well, that's what Mr. Gale told, you know, the restriction is, like the bigger funds, they assume that you use the interest, but not the principal. You know, on the little funds, Mr. Gale said they don't necessarily, you know, believe that that's, you know, that that's the case, that maybe we might be able to spend the principal, you know, on some of the little funds, because they're just little.
Sure.
And the little funds, are they only for the purchase of land, or can they go towards other conservation fundings?
Again, they lost all the documentation on what those funds are for, and so the protocol I'm told we're supposed to follow is if we have something we think the trust funds should be spent for, you know, we should take and, you know, compose a proposal from the commission, send it to the trust fund commissioners for their consideration, and they'll get back to us on whether they'll allow us to spend it on that. So you know, some of them, I mean, some of the trust funds by their very name, you know, it's clear they're for land acquisition. You know, the other trust funds, it's not clear that they're just for land acquisition, so,
Yeah, because they're just formal names, conservation, they're not, I mean, there's conservation land purchase, and then there's 4 other funds totaling, I don't know, looks like about $4,500.
Yep. And I don't have the treasurer's report in front of me. How much of that was principal and how much of that was interest?
7, 8, 9, looks like about 1,100 of the total for the 4 funds is principal. And then we got 13, 23, 35, about 3,600 is earnings.
Yeah, see, and so, you know,
$500.
you know, and what he was telling me is that, you know, they assume that we're free to spend the interest, and, you know, we could make a proposal if we, you know, possibly, you know, spend the principal on the smaller funds.
Okay, yeah, just to clean it up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
All right, and before we adjourn here, we have a few...
Yeah, it's for the gas
signatures.
station order of conditions, for Godfrey, the determination, and for Bedoin, the determination. Gas station project proponents did submit the documents timely for what we had asked them for. Reviewed them all, everything looks fine. All of those revised documents are cited in the order.
What am I gonna do with Mr. Allen?
right, with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn this meeting. The next meeting is at April 3rd, 7 PM in the Ritter Memorial Building on Mass Ave.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, roll call vote, Richard Birch.
Aye.
Bob Pease.
Aye.
Carl Luck. Katie Childs.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, we are adjourned.
Good job.